Hello everybody. I've been doing reaction videos where most of the time a Dawa propagandist has been making false science claims to back up their theistic belief. I've come across this video where it is actually the subject of the Dawa attempt who seems to be fairly clueless. Let's have a look at what he says.
You've said to me that you've studied evolution from a scientific paradigm.
Yeah.
And in fact, you find a lot of evidence that seems to contradict the general narrative of human being and chimp ancestry. Is that right?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Because I haven't really studied that very much. So what have you found that has convinced you otherwise?
No, there's a bunch of things, but it primarily comes from the innate complexity of life. Because the more that we study it, the closer we go into the cells, we get deeper and deeper into the basic cells. They're actually very, very complex.
Very complex.
And they're reliant on multiple interdependencies within the cell to do even basic functions. So the idea that these would have to have originated gradually over time, one by one, is absolute insanity.
So at first, it seems great that he recognizes the complexity of living organisms, yet he then followed this up with the argument from personal incredulity, describing the gradual change as, in his words, insanity.
So this notion of chemistry becoming biology,
yeah, it's nonsense.
Is one that you think is a big problem.
It's
basically.
impossible. The amount of complexity within even the most basic life forms that we see, that's what I'm saying, how it would arise via natural processes is beyond me.
Random processes.
So the least that I can say is that the mechanisms that they tell us of how it works, they're not telling us all, or they don't know.
Nothing is being deliberately held back. Scientists admit there is plenty they do not know. However, we have very good ideas as to how abiogenesis happened. The videos debunking James Tour on the Professor Dave Explains channel give a detailed yet easy to understand description, while the Miller-Urey experiments demonstrate how organic molecules can be made from inorganic precursors.
I would say that you should just throw it all out and say the idea is that natural selection and random mutations, the key is mutations, they drive evolution. They drive and I'm trying to tell you that if you look into this actual structure of a cell and its DNA and how it replicates and what mutations actually are, mutations are not good things, they're not something you want.
Most mutations are neutral. They can be deleterious or beneficial. Mutations can help an organism survive in the environment and increase the likelihood of producing offspring, which allows the mutation and its effects to propagate within the population. As to the mutations are not something you want, well, that depends entirely on the effects of the mutation.
And inside your cells, when the DNA replicates, it also has a system within it. I don't remember the name. It has a system of scanning for mistakes and taking them out and fixing them.
Track the garbage away.
It tries to fix it.
DNA does indeed have a repair mechanism, though this is more related to structural damage rather than base sequence mutations.
So we're trying to say that all of the incredible complexity of life that we see, including never mind your own body and your brain, which is beyond explanation other than it was created as far as I'm concerned.
It's not beyond explanation, and it doesn't mean it was created. I think you need to do some science reading.
They're trying to say that comes from the accumulation of errors that get past that fixing mechanism, and that mutation has to give you something new. It has to give you a functioning structure or a new protein or something that gives you value, right? Because the premise is that organisms change over time due to changing environmental circumstance, and one gets chosen, like I get chosen over you or you get chosen over him because you've got a mutation that gives you an advantage over him.
Yeah.
Somehow that will change your DNA to give you, I don't know.
An edge, yeah.
Yeah, an edge, but like most people think that evolution is adaptation. They're not. They're not the same things. Inside your DNA, you've already got all the instructions you need to build everything in your body, right? The easiest example of this is dogs. We can breed dogs and they look very different. They have different capabilities somewhat. But do they change fundamentally? They don't change fundamentally. They get bigger or smaller. Is that evolution? No.
Yes, it is evolution. Artificial selection on domestic dogs by humans to create dog breeds has arisen very recently within the last 200 to 300 years. All domestic dogs are the same species, Canis lupus familiaris. All dogs have similar enough genetics to allow them to interbreed, though the genetic variation between dog breeds is greater than within a dog breed. Given enough time, it is possible that different dog breeds may form different species.
They get longer or shorter. They have long hair, short hair, curly hair, different colors, bigger muscles, more aggressive. Those are not aspects of evolution, that add aspects of the DNA that's already within the cell being promoted or rejected, moving one way or the other. If that dog can grow gills and swim underwater, I believe the evolution.
Well, we have seen how an animal similar to a hippopotamus evolved into a whale and lives in the sea. It didn't develop gills, of course, as lungs fulfill the role for gas exchange. This is evolution.
The issue of evolution or science is not problematic because, as I explained to you before, science operates on philosophical naturalism.
No, science works on methodological naturalism because there is no reliable mechanism to test for the supernatural. Science does not make the claim that the supernatural doesn't exist. That is philosophical naturalism.
So everything must have, not should have, not could have, must have a naturalistic explanation. So therefore, whatever theory is theorized, whatever hypothesis you might come up with, it has to fit within the paradigm of naturalism.
Right, so it's excluding itself from possibilities, and therefore you could say it's invalid.
No, not invalid, but the most reliable method to determining the truth about the natural world. Once there is a mechanism for reliably testing for the supernatural, then it can be included in science.
Yeah, so no, I wouldn't say invalid, but what I would say that it has a place. It has a place. How do we understand the world? How do things work? How do the shoes stay on your feet? You know, what materials stay dry?
This is observation.
Yeah, exactly, right? But the more, let's say, deeper conversations, such as consciousness.
I have already created videos addressing consciousness from a scientific perspective.
Such as morality.
I've also done a similar video on morality.
So I do have a question.
That's the problem.
Right? Is your position that humans are the descendant of apes?
No.
Right. Okay.
So Islamically...
So we're created.
Humans are not descended from apes, we are apes. There is no evidence to suggest we were created. Thank you for watching, and please let me know what you think in the comments section.